And so I suggest to you today that as you're talking to your neighbors and your friends, to those of you have children and maybe even grandchildren like I do, although my granddaughter Eleanor will not be allowed to vote this year, she's 2.5, but she probably knows more about it than some of the folks in urban areas. Anyway, long story short, we have the opportunity to beat the heck out of this thing, and that we have to do. And I've asked the congressman to raise some funds for the war against it, and then I'm traveling the state while I'm campaigning for our candidates. I'm asking people around the state to give money against it, so the public understands what this charade is. Nonpartisan, honest to God. When the plain dealer thinks it's a bad idea, for crying out loud, it's got to be a really bad idea. Let's be frank about it. I'm so proud of what Sharon and Jim are doing, because it's changed the focus. It's changed the focus at the state party. I'm sitting there one day, they just attacked one of my guys who had been seated that day. Had never been a member of the House before. The Democrats put out a press release attacking him, and I started writing a press release. Now, wait a minute, we've got a state party now. We found Bob Bennett, as usual, in an airport, and I said, Bob, I got a press release here. We're going to have to get it out. He said, read it. I read it to him. He says, turn the second and third paragraphs around and let it go. That's wonderful to have someone backing you up like that. When the governor and I were engaged in a very tough fight, we couldn't get a piece of mail sent to the committeeman out of that office. Now we have a party support, which is a conservative party support. Bob's not a conservative or a liberal, he's a mechanic. And he runs the machinery, and that's what we need. We had an amazing year this year. We had 59 members elected, and groups like this one across the state became involved because a lot of times the local parties weren't involved. We've had a change in our local party as well, praise God. And I just want to stress with you how important that is, because a lot of our people went out and did what they had to do. Now, we have a program, and I won't get into all the details of it, but basically it led to, among other things, 1.7 million doors being knocked in the last election. We went from 46 to 59 votes. That's the largest increase in the history of Ohio, the largest increase in members in the House of Representatives. We, in addition to that, picked up people who were motivated. I just want to tell you one story because it still astounds me. I was going around the state recruiting people, and you know, if you had somebody who was kind of interested in himself, I didn't care about that. I didn't need him. What I needed were people who were committed to doing the right things in the state of Ohio, because at that point, the Strickland administration was in the process of losing 400,000 jobs in 4 years, going for the world's record in Ohio, for crying out loud. Unbelievable. I mean, these are people that have every opportunity and right to work. They're trained, they have skills, and the whole thing was just ugly, ugly. But they couldn't, of course, cut back their expenditures on government personnel. Well, we could. It was just a sad, sad business. And so as that was going on, I went down into Scioto County. You know, Homer Smith's here today. Homer remembers the member from Scioto County. He was there for many, many years. He was Speaker of the House for 17 terms. Pardon me, 17 years. This was a situation where the last conservative member of the House from that county had been elected in 1945. There were people in the county who didn't know that there were Republican candidates. They had no idea of that. Well, I went down there to talk to the county chairman, and he was a doctor, and I went into his, pardon my voice, I'm sorry, I've been around the state. He was a doctor, and he gave me a list of 4 or 5 people, good people, head of the Farm Bureau and other people like that. And then we got to talking. I said, "Doctor, what do you do?" Well, he says, I practice medicine here in my office. And then I teach at the medical school over in Athens. I said, "You're a professor of medicine?" "Oh, yes." I said, what else do you do? Well, I'm a county coroner, he said. I said, that's not pleasant. And he said, well, he said, it may not be pleasant, but it's interesting. So we visited a little while longer. I said, you got some military stuff in here. You know, what's that about? Oh, well, he says, I'm in the National Guard. I said, now I'm in Southeast Ohio. And this guy is in the National Guard. I don't know how many of you know Southeast Ohio. But if you know Kentucky and West Virginia, you know Southeast Ohio. Those people think you're supposed to go in the airborne and, you know, jump out of a perfectly good airplane. God bless them. So I asked him, what's your rank? And he said, well, I'm a colonel. I said, that's a lot of rank. I was a PFC myself, and the chance of my getting to be a colonel, thin and none. But I said, what exactly do you do? Well, he said, I'm a flight surgeon. You know, we go down and pick up the boys on the battlefield, and we take them directly to Germany or over to Baghdad to the hospital. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking to myself, this guy is a candidate made in heaven. And I looked him in the eye and I said, in my usual cheerful style, now, Colonel, have you ever thought of running for the House of Representatives? And he looks back at me with those steely blue eyes that colonels have. And he said, Bill, I think it's my duty. Ooh, a too hanky experience. You know, here we are in a county where nobody's been elected since '45, for crying out loud. And here's this man willing to run. Well, he not only ran, he did the door-to-door program that we had laid out for him. He did it very well. And then he had a group of 300 people who had T-shirts that said Democrats for Johnson. And then in addition to that, he was able to bring in some guys that had been POWs in Vietnam, guys like that believed in him and that thought he should be a member of the House of Representatives. Well, he ran, and he got right around 60% of the vote. Just blew up the whole district. Absolutely incredible. He came to the House and he said, Bill, I've got legislation that I need to get drafted. And I said, you've come to the right place. I'm really good at that. And he said, we have pill mills across Southeast Ohio where doctors who are licensed are selling drugs to people who have no use for those drugs. They're not appropriate, they're illegal, and they're immoral. He said, I'm not expert on it. I had 36 people die in my county last year, and being coroner, I know who those people were, and they died of drug overdoses from drugs sold to them by medical professionals. Well, we drafted up the bill, House Bill 93. He put it in, we had hearings. The testimony started to come in, and it wasn't just Southeast Ohio, folks. It was all over the state. These people were actually selling drugs like well, you know, we won't get into that. And at the end of the day, these people were making a heck of a lot of money. We had one guy, and I won't say which county, down in Southeast Ohio, who mostly sat at his desk every day with a baseball hat on and wrote prescriptions as people came in and asked for them. What kind of drug do you want? Well, I'll tell you what kind of drug they got. Governor and I were together that morning, and the governor says to me, Bill, could I come down and watch that debate? I campaigned down there, and I can't believe the problem that exists. And I said, well, Governor, I've never had a governor sit on the floor with us, but yeah, of course you can. Why not? I've got a little seat over there on the right-hand side where if things get out of hand, I can run down and make a speech, hopefully avoid the impending crash. And as a result, the governor came, he sat there for 2.5 hours and listened to that floor debate. Now, he could have seen it on the TV in his office, but he wanted to show he was really committed to this. As a result of that, House Bill 93 passed the House, passed the Senate, signed by the governor, and immediately we activated the highway patrol in that area. Now, they have limited jurisdiction. They have to be dealing with state highways. But when they watch 4 or 5 people pulling out of a doctor's office one after another and going to a drugstore, you know what? You don't have to draw pictures for troopers. They're pretty smart people. And they started arresting them. Well, the DEA heard about it. Well, you know, they can't be left out of the act. So they came in and they participated. And pretty soon, these doctors didn't have licenses anymore. And pretty soon, thank you. Pretty soon we had people who were really working strongly against this, including county sheriffs, municipal police, and others. I'm so proud that the troopers started that up because it was an example that made everybody aware that what was going on was legitimate. End of the day, that man is running again for the House of Representatives, and I want to tell you about that, just briefly. He was offered a promotion to the rank of Brigadier General in the Guard. And he came to see me. And I said, brother, let's pray about this. It's a pretty big deal. You can do a lot of good either place. And we talked about it. And he ran again for the House and did not take the promotion that he was entitled to, because he wanted to continue to do the work that people like yourselves had let him do, had put him into motion. And now here he was, speaking out in the House of Representatives and doing what had to be done. Congratulations again to those of you who were active almost 2 years ago now. Congratulations to you because of what you did and how you turned things all across the state of Ohio. Well, I've been out recruiting again, and I'll tell you, we've got some real amazing candidates out there. I'm just going to briefly mention one of them who ran last time is running for re-election in a lousy district. She has her electrical engineering master's degree from Penn. She has her MBA from Wharton, and she used to work for McKinsey. She has 3 little girls at home. And so I have to say to her, I know you've got 3 little girls at home. Is this going to be okay for your family? We have to think about people's families. They're doing what the founding fathers in this country did. They're making a sacrifice for other people. Well, she ran. The Democrats spent $1.3 million against her for a job that pays $60,000 a year. $1.3 million. I could only scrape up $400,000, and I was parked on some people's waiting room benches for a while getting that. And she won. She got about 54% of the vote, and the district's about 48% Republican. And she's back again. And I'm just so proud of those kind of people that we've been able to recruit. Ladies and gentlemen, part of the problem for our young people trying to understand our heritage is the kind of candidates they have. Who does the Democrat Party put up in front of the audience? Bill Clinton? Might as well have had Teddy Kennedy up there for crying out loud. I mean, these are immoral people. Immoral people. One thing about it, this president's made Jimmy Carter look a lot better. This is a mess. And our young people, as a result, do not put the value on public service that they did when in Ohio public service was represented by the great Senator Robert Taft. We have to keep looking for these people, encouraging them to run and then helping them once they get started. And the door-to-door is the biggest thing. I don't care if a guy has $1.3 million and we only have $400,000. We can win that seat if people go door-to-door and do the job. And thank you for what you did. You made a difference in Ohio's future. When the governor and I walked in the door, Ohio had an $8 billion debt. Well, of course, when you listen to how many trillions we've lost at the federal level as they shovel money out the windows, when we got in there, that's 18% of the budget. It wasn't there. Now, we could have raised taxes, and that's certainly what Strickland would have done, no question about it. And we got some estimates from the tax department. What would it cost if we had an income tax increase? Understand, I wasn't interested in putting one in. I just wanted to know what would that cost. Between a 46 and 56% increase in the average citizen's taxes, income taxes in this state. That's what the alternative was. So we started in and we made cuts in the state budget. We had to make some cuts in the local government budget, in the school budget. But this is a time when Ohio was dying with 11% unemployment, and they were talking about raising taxes. I went up to American Greetings 4 days after the election. I met with the gentleman there who was the president, He's an Orthodox Jew and he didn't like to be dragged into the middle of all this publicity he was getting, but he was sure as heck getting out of Ohio. He'd had it. He'd worked with the Strickland administration for a little over 2 years to see what they might do, and the answer was nothing. They are not job creators. Obama is not a job creator. He's despoiling the landscape in terms of economic growth, and he's got the gall to stand up and talk about job creation. Oh my gosh, it makes you sick. And I'm worried about people who aren't working. I really am. I mean, that bothers me every night. I think about those people across this state who at one time had productive, good jobs, and today don't have that. $8 billion deficit. Well, we made the cuts. We did what we had to do. It was tough. And I want to brag one more time about my caucus. When I went to the floor, I did not do a head count. All speakers do a head count before they go to the floor. There's nothing worse than standing there and having the rug pulled out from under you. But I knew my people because I recruited them. I knew what their moral backbone was. We went to the floor and every member of that caucus voted for that budget. Just think of that. Thank you, because of your support here. It encouraged people all over the state to go out and do what had to be done. At the end of the budget period, I'm talking about June, at the end of that period, the state of Ohio had its Standard & Poor's rating to borrow money to sell bonds increased. The next month, the federal government, for the first time in the history of America, had theirs cut. Oh, the America was not a good risk anymore, but Ohio was. Just think of that. What a turnaround from having 400,000 unemployed. We are now the leading state in the Middle West in job creation. We've gone from 11% down to 7.2% unemployment. And believe you me, the governor and I aren't happy about that. That's too high. That's too high. We have to solve those problems. The final thing I want to mention today, because it is absolutely incredible to me that we face this situation. We passed a bill in the House in January. It passed the Senate at the end of January. It was signed by the governor February 18th. That bill was called Jobs Ohio. And the purpose of it was to use leverage we have because of businesses that the state is in that it shouldn't be in, liquor sales in this case, and use the borrowing power that was behind that, which was probably $2 to $3 million a year, to create jobs. I had two Democrats join me. Two of my dear black friends from up in Cleveland, Bill Patman, who supported me on vouchers, and John Barnes. The other 38 Democrats voted no on job creation. They voted no. Went over to the Senate, passed the Senate, the governor signed it, and they sued. They got a restraining order in the Common Pleas Court to keep the bill from going into effect. A bill that was job creating in its nature. They said it was unconstitutional. Most Democrats can't spell Constitution. Don't give me that. That's a bunch of bunk. And it isn't the first judge who heard the case, the first one. I knew her when she was a little girl, daughter of a friend of mine who was in the House with me. She was appointed to the bench by Strickland. She threw the case out. She said they had no standing, threw it out. Then it went to the Court of Appeals. 3-judge panel, 2 Democrats on that panel. 3 of them threw it out, unanimously threw it out. Now it's in the Supreme Court. It'll be 2 years from the time that we started that legislation, and these people have done nothing except kill the opportunity to create jobs in Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody should be embarrassed in this election. And that somebody is the group of people who don't understand the absolute requirement that we have job creation, that we work in Ohio together to have it. When I went up to American Greetings, I went up there 4 days after the election. The governor had been there 2 days earlier, and I called John and I said, well, what do you think? He says, well, I think we better not lose this company because it's symbolic. And last year, for the first time, they were the #1 greeting card company in the country. They passed Hallmark. I mean, this is no puddle jumper operation. We went down to Diebold in Stark County. We talked to them because they were leaving. And instead, after we got through talking, they made that their world headquarters. Ladies and gentlemen, these things can be done, but it requires that we have the right people there, people who are willing to do the right thing. A guy who's going to look you in the eye and say, I think it's my duty. That's what we need in Ohio. And I've recruited more of them, and if I am right about the polling, I believe that we may have 64 votes in the next session. That's on top of my good Democratic friends who will come over and help me when they know what we're doing and recognize the value of it. I'm so proud of some of the folks over there who have the backbone. They were told they'd have primaries if they voted with us on redistricting. You know, what a way to run it. It's like a communist party in Russia. There's no reason for that kind of thing to be going on in a free society. I value my friends in both parties, and I praise God that they value me. You have given me an opportunity at the end of a long career in which a lot of people kind of hoped I'd disappear, go away. You've given me the opportunity to serve as Speaker, and I believe the greatest House of Representatives that I've ever had the privilege of serving in, and that's a bunch. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for the work that I know you're going to do this fall. Our county needs you. Our country needs you. We all in elected office who hold your values need you. And I thank God that you're here and that you are joining with the founders of this great republic in doing what has to be done to keep us a free people, responsive to the good things that the public wants. God bless. Thank you.
Phil, before you run off to your next adventure, we talked a little bit about issue 2, and we're going to come back to that in just a minute here. What about issue number 1, redoing the Ohio Constitution? What do we think about that?
Every 20 years in this state, we have a vote on whether we should rework. Oh, thank you so much. That don't sound so good.
Every 20 years, we vote in Ohio as a result of the 1912 Constitution on whether to have a constitutional convention. There are a lot of us who think that that's a pretty scary proposition when you compare our constitutional convention with the kind of people who are running around now who might get elected to a constitutional convention. I therefore introduced a resolution with bipartisan sponsorship, which creates the the Constitutional Modernization Commission. And we're going to start work, I'm glad you asked this, we're going to start work next week. And one of the men I'm really looking forward to working with is our state senator, Larry Obhoff, because he's he knows what government does without constitutions, and therefore has been a really good advocate for constitutions. So we will have a working committee for 7 years on the subject of our state constitution. But can you imagine what would happen if an issue like issue 2 came up in a constitutional revision situation in a committee that was elected? It scares me, frankly. I think constitutions are too important for us to fool around and not have a really good review. It's going to be an exhausting job, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, should we vote in favor or opposed?
Vote no.
Vote no?
doing the job without that.
You can do the job without that, so we should vote no on 1 and 2. Excellent.
No is good.
No is good this year. You want to put out a yard sign this year? No.
Already no.
Okay, that brings us to another person, where'd he go? Jonathan Faria, there he is. Jonathan, did you want to say something about protect your vote for a minute?
Thank you very much, Jim. First of all, after following one of my intellectual heroes in Ohio politics, wow. Having said that, I don't really think I need to add much more to what the speaker said about issue 2. I will say this. It's a bad scheme. We need to vote no. We need to spread the word. The Ohio Appellate Judges Association opposes publicly issue 2. That's the organization that represents the judges that are to put together this sham commission. And if they don't want to do it, why should we force